Hello, my name is Lima, as you can see over here. And this is my enhanced lesson plan or the lesson plan final. Yeah. Um, so the three targeted learners that I'm targeting for my classroom is going to be students with ADHD, because like the issue with focusing can lead to issues with like actually doing classwork and like focusing on a teacher or focusing on the lesson, etc. Students with difficulty processing information, i.e., students with specifically dyslexia or APD, which is auditory processing disorder. So, students who have a hard time reading or writing, or students who have a hard time hearing and processing what the teacher is saying. And then the third group will be students who just like social anxiety or anything that would cause them to have trouble communicating with their peers. I also have the this thing. I can't remember what it's called at the moment. Uh, well, the Universal Design for Learning Guidelines, at least, pasted here so we can like refer back to it. Anywho, I am working on becoming a history teacher, so I chose the one of the history outlines, and one of the first things that it says that the students are supposed to do is they're supposed to grab the entry task, read quietly and answer the question, and then share out their answers and have two volunteers share out answers from the class. Obviously, if you have a class full of socially anxious students, it's not really going to work that well. As I'm sure any teacher knows, there's always that very long, very loud silence of saying, "Does anyone have the answer to this?" And no one raises their hand, no one answers. Um, so the teacher can read out the question, like if they're written on the board or written on the sheet. Have the teacher read out the questions that they're trying to have asked, so that the students who have a hard time reading it can also hear the question, and since they're written down, the students who would have a hard time hearing it can read it. Just the whole vice versa, having both options at the same time. Um, and then allow for enough time to go in between each question to have at least one person answer, but not too much time to where it's a very long, awkward silence. Um, and then consider sources, 1 star if they're somewhat, 4 stars if they're not, or if they're more accurate. Basically, anyone can do this. Um, and then same idea here. Have the volunteers give them enough time in. Obviously, if you have the same student answering every single time, maybe tell them to kind of chill out for a little bit and have someone else answer the question. If not, obviously it's not going to work out because, again, not all students like to answer questions. Moving right along, there's not a ton that really needs to be changed for some of this, except for here, it's the teacher reads out and reviews the learning targets with students before reviewing the entry task. Um, so reading out, I believe, nope. Um, so having the teacher read them out, obviously, with students who will be able to read them, but it's also really important to write down these targets on that day sheet that the student picked up, um, which will be referred to a lot because this day sheet is the glue that holds this whole lesson together. Um, but having those learning targets written down on that day sheet would help with students who can't hear the teacher correctly or aren't focusing correctly, and have them written up. And for students who missed it, if the teacher read them out loud, they would not feel comfortable asking the teacher to repeat it. They're written down so that they can always have those tasks. Um, then we have a lot of student uh, representation in here. Having the students representatives share out group definitions and characteristics of communism and or capitalism. Again, kind of repeating the same solution here every single time, But just having the student be able to write it down instead of sharing it out loud can definitely help with students who just don't want to share out loud. I mean, personally, if I had the opportunity to write down my answer to the question instead of speaking to the entire class, that would really help me. Um, because ironically, I am a socially anxious potential teacher. Anywho, and then again, students share out socialism characteristics and generate examples of U.S. policies that meet that definition. Obviously, earlier on, we'd be learning about socialism and capitalism and communism and all these other isms that the teachers do, that the students would be using for these. Um, and then share them out, but also have them write them down on their day worksheet and turn them in, which the day worksheet will be turned in. Um, and then the teacher at some point needs to share out the Marxist definition of socialism, which again would be something the teacher would read out loud. But for students who can't hear you or just don't listen, the definition will also be written on the day sheet, as with everything else. I also feel like, yes, there is adding to the tech information. I forgot to write this down. The having the day sheet be a PDF or something of that nature, because let's face it, nowadays, pretty much any classroom you're going to be in, you're going to have students who, almost every student will have some form of electronic thing which they can do things with. So, yes, printing it out can be good for some students who like that hard copy of paper, but having a PDF version would also be fantastic for some. And they can turn it in via Canvas or any other uh, turn homework type website that is available or that the school uses. Um, Again, students share out loud with the table group. Depending on how you set up your classroom, having that table group would either be beneficial or harmful, because it could either be a table group full of students who don't know each other or students who are friends. So if they know each other, um, obviously that makes sharing out a little easier. But if they don't know each other and they're like just random people you put in each group, it'd be a little harder. Um, for something as group dependent as this lesson, you could have it so that they choose people that they know with, so they can all have that predetermined banter. But obviously, banter that goes with the classwork. Um, Again, a lot of there's the instructions for this activity. This activity, which will be written again on the day sheet, because everything is written on the day sheet. Which the instructions will be spoken by the teacher and on day sheet. It's just a lot of repetition for some of these. Um, um, Teacher does the Iron Curtain speech. Whoops. What have I done? What have I done? Teacher does the Iron Curtain speech. Sorry. They read aloud or individually, which is fine. For the reading out loud, I forgot to write this down. Um, have the teacher read aloud with them in a way that makes it so the student still needs to. So obviously the students are reading it aloud. Maybe have the teacher read out like certain like really important bits of the speech. So instead of having the teacher read out the whole thing, just have him or her just read out like the really important bits or just like some of it. Just so that, yeah. Or if everyone's reading aloud, just obviously have the kid have whatever student that can't read has difficulty reading not be the person that reads out. Um, Again, a lot of student group discussion. which, depending on the group, is more difficult or not. And then for the final assessment, um, either it could be an either or situation or all of the above situation, but having the lesson plan originally asked students to write a hypothesis addressing the question by incorporating a minimum of one direct quotation from two primary source documents. Um, if you have a student that loves to write paragraphs, by all means let them do this, but as well you could design a Kahoot game or like an online Kahoot game that answers questions about the sources, or maybe polls, or maybe the question would be like, which primary source says this quote, and then quote a specific source, and then like primary source A or primary source B, and have the students vote out like that, or a Jeopardy game, which would take a little more time. So depending on how much time you have left over, it would be either or all the above, which is the information primary source quotes and things like that. Just as that extra added form of primary assessment that would get the students engaged. The students would be a little more engaged in it if they have like they're playing a game to do this final assessment. Um, and then it's just a little more fun for students who don't like writing as much to do that. Um, Same idea here. Um, if you're doing the Jeopardy game, I don't think that this would work well because it's just so much extra time. Um, and then on the way out, the student will either turn in for this final bit. The student will either turn in their physical copy of their day sheet, which isn't written here, the physical copy of day sheet in the correct tray, or they'll turn it in via Canvas or whatever Turnitin homework program is available for your classroom. And that about does it. Yes, I hope this is all what would need to be done correctly for everything that was required. And have a nice rest of your day.